Hello, this is my Mini Cooper 2006 Cooper S, the R53 chassis code, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about what I believe are the very best mods that you can do to these cars. Now, this is a 20-year-old car. It's the second one that I've owned. You can look back at my channel, learn more about this car and the first one I had and why I decided to get back into this platform. Again, this is the first generation R53 Rover 53 chassis code Mini Cooper S, and 20 years later this is an amazing car and I absolutely love it. And so I finally have finished all the modifications I wanted to do to it. I've been really excited to shoot this video. It's a beautiful Saturday morning, a little cloudy outside, but I think it complements the gray color well. So let's talk about the very best modifications for your Mini Cooper S. Now let me say up front, and I will show you because I printed them all out. And let me say a few things, and then I'm going to very quickly walk through all the different modifications this car has. I want to start and say that to me, it's really important when you're modifying a car that's your daily driver, this is one of my daily drivers, that you really do it in a balanced way, that you're not throwing money at the car in attaining power levels, for example, that you really can't use on the street. Now, if you had a track car, that was different. But if you got a Mustang, a Corvette, and it's already got way too much power to use normal driving, and then you start adding crazy power mods and handling mods that you're never going to experience while you're going to get groceries or driving to work. To me, it kind of defeats the purpose, and I'll be honest, I'm very guilty of that. You can look back on this channel. There's some cars that I've owned, particularly a Forester XT and a Fiesta ST, that I just went crazy and I did all the mods. And it was kind of more of an addiction thing, and kind of like, hey, I can do it, so I'm going to do it. I've learned from owning and modifying so many different cars that that is not the way to go for a daily driver. And so this car is, of all the ones I've owned, probably one of my absolute top favorites. So I found a good one and decided I wanted to build it in a way that, again, was some good modifications, kind of OEM plus, but not going crazy to the point that I'm wasting money. And the other thing I want to say, where I've got this car, it's a Cooper S. It's not a JCW, but it's got a little more than what a JCW would have. A regular Cooper S comes stock crank horsepower 168. The John Cooper Works, which has an upgraded pulley, an upgraded tune, upgraded injectors, and a few other things, ends up with 210 crank horsepower. So that's a good bit, of an increase. This car is right around 225 crank horsepower. So it's at the level of kind of where John Cooper Works was, and just a little bit, like maybe 5% more in terms of the power mods. And then it's also got a little better suspension setup. So that is where it is at. And again, I just want to stress, it's all about it being something that you can really enjoy the modifications that you do, and not to get to a level where you can't. Now, up front, I'm going to go ahead and tell you everything I've done to this car cost a whopping $7,500. Now, fortunately for me, I didn't spend hardly any of that. I probably have about $500 or $600 in parts. But the previous owner did almost everything right to this car, and that is one of the reasons I picked it up. And it wasn't a cheaper Cooper. You can get a lot of cheap ones. It wasn't too much money, but at the same time, it wasn't super cheap. But he had done about $7,000 of modifications to it, and that's just the price of the part, guys. That's not even including the labor. So, if you get one, if you want to do it right, it's going to cost some money. Just knowing that up front, it's kind of probably about what the car's worth. So the same price spent on mods of what the car is, which you can get a nice one of these for. But let me jump into it. Just 4 categories. I want to start and talk about power and drivetrain mods. Then I'm going to talk about handling and brake mods. And I wrote little price quotes over here next to each one. Then safety and future-proofing mods. And then finally, other. Okay? So again, real quickly, the first thing you definitely want to get is a supercharger pulley. Unlike a turbocharger that takes exhaust gases to get things going, the supercharger is driven by a belt. So the pulley is right down there, and very common for these. Again, JCW had it this way. Getting an undersized pulley makes the belt drive faster and spin the supercharger faster, so you have more power. Next thing I have is this stainless steel DDM Works intake with the air filter element. And then, of course, with the intake opening up the car to breathe, you also want an aftermarket exhaust. This has the Stratmosphere exhaust, and all of that is helping the car breathe better. So more breath means more power, kind of like if you had one nose plugged and you were running and then you unplugged it. Suddenly you had two. You had double the air, more oxygen, more strength. Car is very similar. Next thing I want to mention, that's the modification, is my fuel injectors, and you can see the blue one right there in the center of the camera. And I have a video from about a month ago where I detailed the installation of that, giving the car more fuel. And then the next thing that's important once you do all that is having a tune to the car. And I, again, talked about this in another video just a few weeks ago, but I have a tune from a fellow named Adrian C, and he can be found on North American Motoring and also on Facebook. And he did a whole bunch of things, raised my red line up to 7,400, changed some cooling fans, and took the car to a whole new power level. And like I explained in that video, and I'll very shortly just go over this, adding all the hardware is only going to get you part of the gain, because the car doesn't know to take advantage of those parts in terms of air and timing and fuel and all that sort of thing. So having a tune has what you're doing is you're telling the ECU, hey, now the car can do all this. Now it has these fuel injectors. Now it can get this much fuel, not that sort of thing. And boy, what a difference the car was after that. And then two other quick things as we talk about power mods. I just installed this a few days ago, and I'm really happy with it. This is the Helix short shift adapter, which installs from underneath, and it significantly shortened the throws. About 27% is what they say. Feels like a little more than that. And then finally, and I also did a video on this, the roar pedal adapter. It is a pedal throttle adapter that you can control electronically. And if you have ever driven a Mini Cooper, you know that the throttle input is awful. So with the roar device, you get this, or you can have an app on your phone that controls it. And you can basically modulate the electric throttle control so that when you put your foot down, it doesn't feel like a sponge, but it actually feels like you're pushing something. And very, very, very nice mod. All right, so those are power and drivetrain mods. Handling and brake mods. Fortunately, I didn't have to do any of this. The previous owner did all this, and this really is the biggest bulk of expense for these modifications. I'm not going to show you every one, but just real quickly to talk about, it's got, obviously all the bracing, the strut bar. It has lowering springs. You can tell that the car has been lowered a little bit, very tastefully. Has a rear sway bar, which I won't show you, and also rear control arms and Coney yellows shocks. And I was just up under this the other day installing the short shifter, and I got to look at all this beautiful suspension work that was done to this car, and makes just a great difference. And then the other, rounding it out, is the R56, which is the next generation Mini Cooper S brake upgrade. And then of course stainless steel lines and new fluid with the blue fluid, performance fluid, and ECS red stuff pads. So this car has had a complete suspension and brake upgrade, and again, that's $3,000 or $4,000 just the parts. Fortunately, that was done before me by the previous owner, Jay, and he did it right. Next, let's move into, this is important, safety and future-proofing mods. So if you know these cars, you know there's a few things that tend to go wrong, and if you can live with them, it's worth it. I'll just tell you, so far it's been worth it. I've owned two of these. So there's a few things you can do to help with that, and I just listed the main four, and I'll just walk through those. The first one is an ATI dampener, which is a crank pulley you can buy. These are not cheap. Again, for me, this is one that the previous owner did. And I don't know much about these, but he had it done. It's right down there. And basically, from what I read, these apparently these tend to fail, the crank pulleys, at higher revs. So it's kind of like a insurance thing to get the dampener. It smooths out. I'll just read here what I took from the internet. It provides balanced dampening of torsional crankshaft vibrations through all RPM ranges, and it makes the car idle and run smoother. So I didn't do that, but it was done. I read about it. Again, apparently it's really a common breaking point for these when you start revving them high. So that's kind of a future-proof thing. Another really important thing, if you know anything about Mini Coopers, you know that the coolant tanks fail. And so it has a cheap yellow plastic one that comes with the car that they crack and they leak and they're awful. So you want to get a stainless steel tank which I have. And then another huge thing is mushrooming the struts. After years of bouncing up and down, these three areas where the strut connects start to mushroom through and actually come through this strut tower. So a very common future-proof fix, preventative maintenance sort of thing, is to get some kind of plate, as you can see here, that protects that area from mushrooming. And then the last thing that is kind of a safety future-proof is my Fumoto oil drain valve. I don't know if we're gonna be able to see it. This car is very low, but right there, under the oil pan, you can see right in the center, it's FUMOTO, little brass valve. And basically you take out your oil drain plug and you put that in, and then it has a little valve that has a safety. And oil changes become very easy. You just undo the valve, it sprays out, you close it. No more mess. I put those on all my cars, so I just put that on there when I change the oil, and great mod. And then finally, other mods. This has Grom Bluetooth, which is a wireless adapter that you install back here, and then basically it allows you to play stuff off your phone and do wireless calls in your car. This has the WeatherTech heavy-duty mats, which for me is something I get for every car I own. And it's got them in the front and the back, and just keeps the car clean. And then rounding out those other mods, I put a few appearance things on it. I've got, you might have noticed, blacked out the handles and the gas cap. I added this stripe here. I'm thinking about blacking out this center chrome line. I'm not sure. Might do that. And finally, the window tint. This car does have window tint. And we're right at 35%. And it looks great. So that rounds out the mods. Again, that's about, if you install all of that yourself, that's about $7,500, which again is about what you can get one of these for in good condition with good miles. So is that worth it? Well, fortunately for me, almost all of that was done, and that was one of the reasons I bought this car at a higher price than a lot of Coopers out there are $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. This car was loved and set up right by the previous owner. I just added a few things to it myself, the tune, the injectors, the short shifter, and some other things. But that's where you get. But bottom line, guys, that is what I believe are the best mods for an R53. You can take these over 300 horsepower, put a huge wing on the back, make it even lower, you know. But again, to me, this is just a good level for a streetable daily driver that's not crazy. It doesn't beat you up with the suspension. It doesn't have so much power that you can never really enjoy it on the road. You just really get 100% payback for this car with these modifications. And I am absolutely loving this car. I'm going to do a couple more videos I'm really excited about. I'm going to do a true cost, go through the maintenance that this car has experienced in the last 20 years and tell you, like, you know, how much do these cost to maintain. And then I'm going to do a POV and do some twisties and just really let you hear the sounds the car makes. So those will be coming up. Thank you for watching this. I would love to hear your comments, and hope this day finds you well. Peace. God bless you.